See, I don't even know what this uneven is. I don't. Junk bills up on my table. All these cell phones and things. Man, I'm tired. Okay. Well, deathmatch tickets. Let's see, can we burn through these 12 tickets? Oh no. Sir Spice. Here's Sir Spice. Oh. Please don't help me. What? Get out my way. Get out of my way. Can you die? Damn. Man, that's no fair. You see how I loaded the whole dang magazine. Yeah, dude. That's all. Somebody got it together. Know how to stand in the wake from the bucket launch. Justifications. Oh. Glad you were there, myself. Man, this globular modular. Man, are you kidding me? I was just getting started. That's all I mean. Didn't even hit my overdrive. You suck. You know, you really do. Little turkey and still chicken and stuff. Well, I thought I saw it, so you're behind down there. Yeah, come on. Right over here, come on. Should have held back on that last shot. Damn it. Come on, you little turkeys. What you doing? Hiding up there. Scared to come out here. So Spice? Trying to flank my behind? Is that what you doing? Think I'm not watching you? Ooh, I hate you. Yeah, no. Oh, I didn't get it on the board. Dang. Humiliation. Humiliation.
Brass. Thou shalt do, and thy deeds shall be goodly, and the day's work shall be done, though not but the wild deer see it. Nor yet shalt thou be alone, for evermore in thy waiting. For but like a fearful friend, the long days for thee may fashion, to help thee ere the end. But now shalt thou bide in the wild wood, and make thee a lair therein. Thou art here in the midst of thy foemen, and from them thou well mayst win, hadst thine heart desireth. Yet be thou not too bold, lest the tale of the wood abider too oft to the king be told. Ere many days are departed again shall I see thy face, that I may wot full surely of thine abiding place, to send thee help and comfort. But when that hour is o'er, it were good, O last of the Volsungs, that I see thy face no more, if so indeed it may be, but the Norns must fashion all, and what the dawn hath faded on the hour of noon shall fall. Then she kissed him and departed, for the day was nigh at hand, and by then she had left the wood ways green lay the horse-fed land, beneath the newborn daylight, and as she brushed the dew, betwixt the yellowing acres, all heaven overhead was blue. And at last on that dwelling of kings the golden sunlight lay, and the morn and the noon and the even built up another day. Of the birth and fostering of Sinfidli, Sunny's son. So wrought is the will of King Siggeir, and he weareth Odin's sword, and it lies on his knees in the council and hath no other lord, and he sendeth earls o'er the sea flood to take King Volsung's land, and those scattered and shepherdless sheep must come beneath his hand. And he holdeth the milk-white Sunny as his handmaid and his wife. And not that his will she doeth, nor rise at the word of strife. So his heart is praising his wisdom, and he deems him of most avail, of all the lords of the cunning that teach him how to prevail. Now again in a half-month's wearing goes Sunny into the wild, and findeth her way by her wisdom to the dwelling of Volsung's child. It was seen as a house of the dwarfs, a rock, and a stony cave. In the heart of the midmost thicket by the hidden river's way. There Sunny found him watching how the white-hat waters ran, and she said in her heart as she saw him that once more she had seen a man. His words were few and heavy, for seldom his sorrows left, yet ever his love went with them. And men say that Sunny wept when she left that last of her kindred, yet wept she nevermore amid the earls of Siggeir, and as lovely as before was her face to all men's deeming, nor aught it changed for ruth, nor for fear nor any longing. And no man said forsooth that she ever laughed thereafter till the day of her death was come. So is Volsung's seed abiding in a rough and narrow home. And what gear he get him enough from the slaying of earls of men, and gold as much as he would. Though indeed but now and again, he fell on the men of the merchants, lest, wax he overbold, the tale of the wood abider too oft to the king should be told. Alone in the woods he abided, and a master of masters was he, in the craft of the smithying folk. And whilst with the hunter's seed, belated amid the thicket, his forge's glimmering light, and the boldest of all the fishers would hear his hammer be night. Then did wax the tale of the Volsungs, and the word Midda, wood folk rose, that a king of the giants had wakened from amidst the stone-hedged close, where they slept in the heart of the mountains, and had come adown to dwell in the cave whence the dwarfs were departed. And they said, it is up at well to come anigh to his house door, or wander wide in his woods. For a tyrannous lord he is, and a lover of gold and of goods. So when the long year's over, and still sitteth Sunny there, beside the king of the god folk, and his wife no less there, and men and maids hath she gotten who are ready to work her will, for the worship of her fairness, and remembrance of her ill. So it fell on a morn of springtide, as Sigmund sat on the sward, by the ancient house of the dwarf Kund and fashioned a golden sword. By the side of the hidden river he saw a damsel stand, and a man-child of 10 summers was holding by her hand. And she cried, O forest dweller, harm not the child nor me, for I bear a word of Sunny's, and thus she saith to thee, I send thee a man to foster. If his heart be good at need, then may he help thy work day. But hearken my words and heed. If thou deem that his heart shall avail not, thy work is over great, that thou weary thy heart with such like, let him wend the ways of his fate. And no more words spake the maiden, but turned and gat her gone. And there by the side of the river the child abode alone, but Sigmund stood on his feet, and across the river he went. For he knew how the child was Siggeir's, and of Sunny's fell intent. So he took the lad on his shoulder, and bade him hold his sword, and waded back to his dwelling across the rushing ford. But the youngling fell a prattling, and as to this and that, as about the rattle of waters on Sigmund's shoulder he sat. And Sigmund deemed in his heart that the boy would be bold enough. So he fostered him there in the woodland in life full hard and rough, for the space of 3 months swearing. And the lad was ducked and strong, yet his sight was a grief to Sigmund because of his father's wrong. On a morn to the son of King Siggeir Sigmund the Volsung said, I go to the hunting of deer, buy thou and bake our bread, against I bring the venison. So forth he fared on his way, and came again with the quarry about the noon of day. Quoth he, is the morning's work done? But the boy said not for a space, and all white he was and quaking as he looked on Sigmund's face. Tell me, O son of the god king, quoth Sigmund, how thou hast fared. Forsooth, is the baking of bread so mighty a thing to be dared? Quoth the lad, I went to the meal sack, and therein was something quick, and it moved, and I feared for the serpent, like a winter ashen stick, that I saw on the stone last even, so I durst not deal with the thing. Loud Sigmund laughed, and answered, I have heard of that son of a king, who might not be scared from his bread for all the worms of the land. And therewith he went to the meal sack and thrust therein his hand, and drew forth an ash-grey adder, and a deadly worm it was. Then he went to the door of the cave and set it down in the grass, while the king's son quaked and quivered. Then he drew forth his sword from the sheath, and said, Now fearest thou this, that men call the serpent of death? Then said the son of King Siggeir, I am young as yet for the war, yet in such a blade shall I carry ere many a month be o'er. Then glide went the king in the wind, and leaned on his naked sword, and stood there many an hour, and mused on Sunny's words. But at last when the noon was arisen, and the undark night begun, he sheathed the sword and cried, Come forth, King Siggeir's son, thou shalt run from out of the walled and no more will I foster thee. Forth came the son of Siggeir, and quaked his face to see, but thereof not Sigmund noted, but bade him wend within. So they went through the summer night tide by many a woodway dim, till they came to a certain wood lawn, and Sigmund lingered there, and spake as his feet brushed o'er it, the June flowers blossomed fair. So they came to the skirts of the forest, and the meadows of the neat, and the earliest wind of dawning blew over them soft and sweet. There stayed Sigmund the Volsung, and said, King Siggy your son, bide here till the birds are singing, and the day is well begun. Then go to the house of the God King, and find thou Signy the Queen, and tell unto no man else the things thou hast heard and seen, but to her shalt thou tell what thou wilt, and say this word withal, Mother, I come from the wild wood. And he said, Whatever befall, alone will I abide there, nor have such fosterlings. For the sons of the gods may help me, but never the sons of kings. Go, then, with this word in thy mouth, or do thou after thy fate, and, if thou wilt, betray me. And repented early and late. Then he turned his back on the acres, and away to the woodlands strode. But the boy scarce spotted the sunrise ere he went the homeward road. So he came to the house of the God Kings, and spake with Signy the Queen, nor told he to any other the things he had heard and seen, for the heart of a king's son had he. But Signy hearkened his word. And long she pondered and said, What is it my heart hath feared? And how shall it be with earth's people if the kin of the Volsungs die, and King Volsung unavenged in his mount by the sea strand lie? I have given my best and bravest, as my heart's blood I would give, and my heart and my fame and my body, that the name of Volsung might live. Lo, the first gift cast aback, and how shall it be with the last, if I find out the gift for the giving before the hour be past? Long while she mused and pondered while day was thrust on day, till the king and the earls of the strangers seemed shades of the dream-tide grey, and gone seemed all earth's people, save their women mid the gold, and that men in the depths of the forest in the cave of the dwarfs, of old. And once in the dark she murmured, for then was the ancient song, that the gods were but twin-born once, and deemed it nothing wrong, to mingle for the world's sake, whence at the Aesir birth, and the Vanir and the dwarf kind, and all the folk of earth. Now amidst those days that she pondered came a wife of the which folk there, a woman young and lovesome, and shape exceeding fair, and she spake with Signy the Queen, and told her of deeds of her craft, and how the might was with her soul from her body to waft, and to take the shape of another and give her fashion in turn. Fierce then in the heart of Signy a sudden flame gan burn, and the eyes of her soul saw all things, like the blind, whom the world's last fire hath healed in one passing moment twixt his death and his desire. And she thought, Alone I will bear it. Alone I will take the crime. On me alone be the shaming, and the cry of the coming time. Yea, and he for the life is fated and the help of many a folk, and I for the death and the rest, and deliverance from the yoke. Then when at the midnight moon she answered the woman and spake, Thou art come to the Goth Queen's dwelling, wilt thou do so much, for my sake, and for many a pound of silver and for rings of the ruddy gold, as to change thy body for mine ere the night is waxen old? Not the which wife fair gainsaid it, and they went to the bower, aloft, and hand in hand and alone they sung the spell song soft, till Signy looked on her guest, and lo, the face of a queen, with the steadfast eyes of grey, that so many a grief had seen, but the guest held forth a mirror, and Signy shrank aback, from the laughing lips and the eyes, and the hair of crispy black, but though she shuddered and sickened, the false face changed no whit, but ruddy and white it blossomed and a smile played over it. And the hands were ready to cling, and beckoning lamps were the eyes, and the light feet long for the dance, and the lips for laughter, and lies. So that eve in the mid-hall's high seat was the shape of Signy the Queen, while swiftly the feet of the witchwife brushed over the moonlit green, but the soul knit the gleam of the torches, her thought was of gain, and of gold. And the soul of the wind-driven woman, swift-foot in the moonlight, whole, her thoughts were of men's lives changing, and the uttermost ending, of earth, and the day when death should be dead, and the new sun's nightless birth. Men say that about that midnight King Sigmund wakened and heard the voice of a soft-speeched woman, shrill sweet as a dawning bird. So he rose, and a woman indeed he saw by the door of the cave, with her raiment wet to her midmost, as though with the river wave, and he cried, What wilt thou? What wilt thou? Be thou womankind or faith, here is no good abiding, went forth upon thy way. She said, I am not but a woman, I made of the Earl folk's kin, and I went by the skirts of the woodland to the house of my sister, to win, and have strayed from the way benedded, and I fear the wolves and the wild. By the glimmering of thy torchlight from afar was I beguiled. Ah, slay me not on thy threshold, nor send me back again, through the rattling waves of thy ford, that I crossed in terror and pain. Drive me not to the night in the darkness, for the wolves of the which devoureth. I am weak and thou art mighty, I will go at the dawning hour. So Sigmund looked in her face and saw that she was fair. And he said, Nay, not will I harm thee, and thou mayst harbor here. God wot if thou fearest not me, I have not to fear thy face. Though this house be the terror of menfolk, thou shalt find it as safe a place, as though I were not but thy brother. And then mayst thou tell, if thou wilt, where dwelleth the dread of the woodland, the bearer of many a guilt, though meseems for so goodly a woman it were all too ill a deed, in reward for the woodwife's guesting to betray him in his need. So he took the hand of the woman and straightway led her in, where days agone the dwarf come with their deeds of smithying win, and he kindled the half-slaked embers, and gave her of his cheer, amid the gold and the silver, and the fine-won ramandeer. And soft was her voice, and she sang him sweet tales of yore agone, till all his heart was softened. And the man was all alone, and in many wise she wooed him. So they parted not that night, nor slept till the morning, when the woods were waxen bright, and high above the tree thus shone the sister of the moon, and hushed toward the water oozles with the coming of the noon, when she stepped from the bed of Sigmund, and met the dwarf's abode, and turned to the dwellings of men, and the ways where the Earl folk roamed. But next morn from the house of the god king the witch wife went her ways, with gold and goods and silver, such store as a queen might praise. But no long while with Sigmund dwelt remembrance of that night. Amid his kingly longings and his many deeds of might, it fled like the dove in the forest or the down upon the blast. Yet heavy and sad were the years, that even in Suckwise passed, as here it is written aforetime. Then for 10 years worn by, when unto that hidden river a man child drew a knife, and he looked and beheld how Sigmund wrought on a helm of gold, by the crag in a stony dwelling where the dwarf king wrought his old. Then the boy cried, Thou art the woodwife of whom my mother spake. Now will I come to thy dwelling. So the rough stream did he take, and the welter of the waters rose up to his chin and more. But so stark and strong he waited that he won the further shore, and he came and gazed on Sigmund. But the Volsung laughed, and said, As fast thou runnest toward me as others in their tread, run over the land and the water, what wilt thou, son of a king? But the lad still gazed on Sigmund, and he said, A wondrous thing. Here is the cave and the river, and all tokens of the place. But my mother's sign told me none might behold that face, and keep his flesh from quaking, but at thee I quake not aught. Sure I must journey further, lest her errand come to naught, yet I would that my foster father should be such a man as thou. But Sigmund answered and said, Thou shalt bide in my dwelling now. And thou mayst wot full surely that thy mother's will is done, by this token and no other, that thou lookedst on Volsung's son, and smeledst fair in his face. But tell me thy name and thy years, and what are the words of Signy that the son of the god king bears? Sinfully they call me, he said, and 10 summers have I seen. And this is the only word that I bear from Signy the queen, that once more a man she sendeth the work of thy hands to speed. If he be of the kings or the gods thyself shalt know in thy need. So Sigmund looked on the youngling and his heart unto him yearned. But he thought, shall I pay the hire ere the worth of the work be earned? And what hath my heart to do to cherish Sigur's son? Upbrand the light for the burning when the last of its work is done? But there in the wild and the thicket those twain a while abode, and on the lad laid Sigmund full many a weary load, and thrust him mid all dangers, and he bore all passing well, where hardihood might help him. But his heart was fierce and fell. And ever said Sigmund the Volsung, the lad hath plenteous heart, in the guile and malice of Sigurd, and in Sonny's hearty heart. But why should I cherish and love him, since the end must come at last? Now is summer and winter and spring o'er those men of the wilds had passed. And summer was there again, when the Volsung spake on a day, I will wend to the wood deer's hunting, but thou at home shalt stay, and deal with the baking of bread against the even come. So he went and came on the hunting and brought the venison home, and the child, as ever his wont was glad of his coming back, and said, Thou hast gotten us venison, and the bread shall no wise lack. Yea, quoth Sigmund the Volsung, hast thou needed the meal that was yonder? Yea, and what other? He said, Though therein forsooth was a wonder, for what I would handle the meal sack therein was something quick, as if the life of the meal brook were set in an ashen stick, but the meal must into the oven, since we were lacking bread, and all that is needed together, and the wonder is baked and dead. Then Sigmund laughed and answered, Thou hast kneaded up therein the deadliest of all adders that is of the creeping kin, so tonight from the bread refrain thee, lest thy bane should come of it. For here, the tale of the elders doth men a marvel to wit, that such was the shaping of Sigmund among all earthly kings, that unhurt he handled adders and other deadly things, and might drink unscathed of venom, but sinfully so was wrought, that no sting of creeping creatures would harm his body aught. But now full glad was Sigmund, and he let his love arise, for the huge limbed son of Sinel with the fierce and eager eyes. And all deeds of the sword he learned him, and showed him feats of war, where sea and forest mingle, and up from the ocean's shore, the highway leads to the market, and men go up and down, and the spear-hedged wains of the merchants fare off to the god-folk's town. Sweet thin sinfully deemed it to look on the bale fire's light, and the bickering blood reeds tangle, and the fallow blades of fight. And in 3 years' space were his war deeds far more than the deeds of a man, but dread was his face to behold ere the battle play began, and grey and dreadful his face when the last of the battle sank. And so the years won over, and the joy of the woods they drank, and they gathered gold and silver, and plenteous outland goods. But they came to a house on a day in the uttermost part of the woods, and smote on the door and entered, when a long while no man bade. And lo, a gold-hung hall, and 2 men on the benches laid, in slumbers deep as the death. And gold rings great and fair, those sleepers wore on their bodies, and broidered southland gear, and over the head of each there hung a wolf-skin gray. Then the drift of a cloudy dream wrapped Sigmund's soul away, and his eyes were set on the wolf's skin, and long he gazed thereat, and remembered the words he uttered when erst on the beam he sat, that the gods should miss a man in the utmost day of doom, and win a wolf in his stead. And unto his heart came home that thought, as he gazed on the wolf's skin in the other days waxed dim, and he gathered the thing in his hand, and did it over him. And in likewise did sinfully as he saw his fosterer do. Then lo, a fearful wonder, for as very wolves they grew, in outward shape and semblance, and they held up wolfish things, like the grey dogs of the forest. Though somewhat the hearts of kings abode in their bodies of beasts. Now sooth is a tale to tell, that the men in the fair wrought raiment for kings' sons bound by a spell, to wind as wolves of the wild wood, for each 9 days of the 10, and July all spent for a season when they get their shapes of men. So Sigmund and his fellow rushed forth from the golden place. And though their king hearts bade them the backward way to trace, unto their dwarf-wrought dwelling, and there by the change, yet their wolfish habit drave them wide through the wood to range, and draw nigh to the dwellings of men and fly upon the prey. And lo now, a band of hunters on the uttermost woodland way, and they spy those dogs of the forest, and fall on with a spear, nor deem that any other but woodland beasts they were, and that easy would be the battle. Short is a tale to tell. For every man of the hunters amid the thicket fell. Then onwards fare those were wolves, and unto the sea they turn, and their ravening hearts are heavy, and sore for the prey they yearn. And lo, in the last of the thicket a score of the chaffering men, and sinfully was wild for the onset, but Sigmund was wearing then, for the glimmering gold of his dwarf house, and he bade refrain from the folk, but wrath burned in the eyes of sinfully, and forth from the thicket he broke. Then rose the axes aloft, and the swords flashed bright in the sun, and but little more needed that the race of the Volsungs was done, and the folk of the gods begetting, but at last they quelled the war, and no man again of the sea folk should ever sit by the oar. Now sinfully fay weary and faint, that Sigmund held over the dead, and wrath in his heart there gathered, and a dim thought wearied his head, and his tangled wolfish wit, that might never understand. As though some god in his dreaming had wasted the work of his hand, and forgotten his craft of creation. Then his wrath swelled up amain, and he turned and fell on Symphony, who had wrought the racket, the bane, and across the throat he tore him as his very mortal foe, till a cold dead corpse by the sea strand his fosterling lay low. Then weary yet grew Sigmund, and the dimwit seemed to pass from his heart grown cold and feeble. When lo, amid the grass, there came two weasels bickering, and one bit his mate by the hand, till she lay there dead before him. Then he sorrowed over her dead, but no long while he abode there, but into the thicket he went, and the wolfish heart of Sigmund knew somewhat his intent. So he came again with the earth leaf and laid it on his mate, and she rose up whole and living and no worser of estate than ever she was aforetime, and the twain went merry away. Then swiftly rose up Sigmund from where his fosterling lay, and a long while searched the thicket, till that 3 dirk he found, and he laid it on Symphony, who rose up pale and sound, as ever he was in his life days. But now indeed they had that hapless work of the witch folk, and the skins that their bodies clad. So they turn their faces homeward and whereaway they go, till they come to the hidden river, and the glimmering house they know. There now they abide in peace, and went abroad no more, till the last of the 9 days perished, and the spell for a space was o'er, and they might cast their wolf shapes. So they stood on their feet, upright, great men again as aforetime, and they came forth into the light, and looked in each other's faces, and belike a change was there, since they did on the bodies of wolves, and lay in the wood wolves, glare, and they looked, and sore they wondered, and they both for speech did yearn. First then spake up Symphony, sure I had a craft to learn, and thou hadst a lesson to teach, that I left the dwelling of kings, and came to the wood wolves' dwelling. Thou hast taught me many things, but the gods have taught me more, and at last have abased us both, that if not that leave before us our hearts and our hands may be lost. Come then, how long shall I tarry till I fashion something great? Come, master, and make me a master that I do the deeds of faith. Heavy was Sigmund's visage, but fierce did his iron glow. This is the deed of thy mastery. We twain shall slay my foe, and how if the foe were thy father. Then he telleth him Sigurd's tale, and saith, now think upon it. How shall thine heart avail to bear the curse that cometh if thy life ended long? The man that slew his father in the men did wrong with wrong. It is the gods have made thee a man unlike all men, for thou startest not, nor palest. Can I forbear it then, to use the thing they have fashioned, lest the Volsung seed should die, and an avenged King Volsung in his mount by the sea strand lie? Then loud laughed out Symphony, and he said, I wot indeed, that Sine's my mother, and who will I help at need, is the faults of the king folk my father, that adder of the brake, who gave me never a blessing, and many a cursing spake? Yea, have I in sooth a father, say them that cherished my life, the lord of the helm of terror, the king of the flame of strife? Lo now my hand is ready to strike what stroke thou wilt, for I am the sword of the gods, and thine hand shall hold the hilt. Fierce glowed the eyes of King Sigmund, for he knew the time was come, when the cursed King Sigurd fashioned at last shall seek him home, and of what shall follow after, be it evil days, or bliss, or praise, or the cursing of all men, the gods shall see to this. Of the slaying of Sigurd the Goth king. So there are those kings abiding, and they think of naught but the day, when the time at last shall serve them, to wend on the perilous way. And so in the first of winter, when nights grow long and murk, they fare unto Sigurd's dwelling and seek wherein to lurk. And by night was the time of twilight, ere the watch of the night was set, and the watch of the day was departed, as Symphony minded yet. So now by a passage he wanted they get them into the bower, where lay the biggest wine tuns, and there they abode the hour, and unto the hall it was. But no man came thereto, but now and again the cup lord when King Sigurd's wine he drew, yea and so nigh to the feast hall, that they saw the torches shine, when the cup lord was departed with King Sigurd's dear bought wine, and they heard the glee of the people, and the horns and the beakers din, when the feast was dight in the hall and the earls were merry therein. Calm was the face of Sigmund, and clear were his eyes and bright. But Symphony gnawed on his shield rim, and his face was haggard and white, for he deemed the time full long, ere the fallow blade should leap, in the hush of the midnight feast hall o'er King Sigurd's golden sleep. Now it fell that 2 little children, Queen Sunny's youngest born, were about the hall that even. and amid the glee of the horn, they played with a golden toy, and trundled it here and there, and thus to that lurking bower they drew exceeding near, when there fell a ring from their toy, and swiftly rolled away,
About to lose.
and into the place of the wine tuns, and by Sigmund's feet made stay. Then the little ones followed after, and came to the lurking place, where lay those night abiders, and met them face to face, and fled, ere they might hold them, aback to the thronging hell. Then let those twain to their feet lest the sword and the murder fall, on their hearts in their narrow lair and they die without a stroke. But in as they met the torchlight and the din and tumult of folk, below there on the very threshold did Sani the Volsung stand, and one of her last born children she had on either hand. For the children had cried, "We have seen them, those two among the wine, and their hats are white and white, and their garments tinkle and shine." So while men ran to their weapons, those children Sani took, and went to meet her kinsman. Then once more did Sigmund look on the face of his father's daughter, and kind of heart he grew, as the clash of the coming battle and the doomed men drew, but won and fell was Sani. And she cried, "The end is near." And thou with the smile on thy face and the joyful eyes and clear. But with these thy two betrayers first stain the edge of fight, for why should the fruit of my body outlive my soul tonight? But he cried in the front of the spear hedge, "Nay, this shall be far from me, to slay thy children sackless, though my death belike thee be. No man will be dealing, sister, and old the night is grown, and fair in the house of my fathers the benches are bestrown." So she stood aside and gazed, but sinfully taketh them up, and breaketh each tender body as a drunkard breaketh a cup. With a dreadful voice he cried, and casteth them down the hall, and the gods both sunder before them, and at Siggeir's feet they fall. But the fallow blades left naked, and on the battle came, as the tide of the winter ocean sweeps up to the beaconing flame. But firm in midst of onset Sigmund the Volsung stood, and stirred no more for the sword strokes than the oldest oak of the wood shall shake to the herd boys' whittles, white danced as war flames, gleam, and oftenance beholding his eyes of God were beamed, clear from the sword blade's tangle, and often for a space, amazed the guard of murder stared deepness on his face. Nor back nor forward moved he, but fear sinfully wend, where the spears were set the thickest, and sword with sword was blend. And great was the death before him, till he slipped in the blood and fell. Then the shield guard compassed Sigmund, in short is the tale to tell. For they bore him down unwounded, and bonds about him cast, nor sore hurt his sinfully, but his hobbled straight and fast. Then the god folk went to slumber when the hall was washed from blood, but a long while waking Siggeir, for fell and fierce was this wound, and all the days of his kingship seemed nothing worth death then, while fared the son of Volsung as well as the worst of men, while yet that son of Sani lay untormented there, yea the past days of his kingship seemed lostsomenless and bare, since all their might had failed him to quench the Volsung kin. So when the first grey dawning a new day did begin, King Siggeir bade his bondsmen to dight an earthen mound, anigh to the house of the god kings amid the fruit-grown ground, and that house of death was twofold, for 'twas sundered by a stone, into two woeful chambers, alone and not alone. Those vanquished thralls of battle therein should bide their hour, that each might hear the tidings of the other's baleful bower, yet have no might to help him. So now the twain they brought, and Luridel was sinfully, with eyes that looked at naught. But Sigmund fresh and clear-eyed went to the deadly hall, and this song arose within him as he sat within its wall. Nor durst Siggeir mock him, as he had good will to do, but when his ways when the bondman brought the roofing turfs thereto. And that was at eve of the day. And lo now, Sani the White, one-faced and eager-eyed stole through the beginning of night, to the place where the builders build, and the thralls with lingering hands had roofed in the grave of Sigmund and hidden the glory of lands, but over the head of Sinfoti for a space were the rafters there. Gold then to the thralls she gave, and promised them days full fair, if they held their peace forever of the deed that then she did, and nothing they gainsaid it. So she drew forth something hid, in wrappings of wheat straw winded, and into Sinfoti's place, she cast it all down swiftly. Then she covered up her face, and beneath the winter starlight she wended swift away. But her gift to the thralls deemed little, and the thatch on the hall, they lay, and apart, they too, to their slumber, now dight was the dwelling of death. Then Sigmund hears Sinfotli, how he cries through the stone and saith, best done to bathe his mother, well saith the elders saw. Here hath Sunny set me swine's flesh in whinings of wheaten straw. And again he held him silent of bitter words or of sweet. And quoth Sigmund, what hath pathetic? Is an adder in the meat? The maddest Fosterling laughed, yea, a worm of bitter tooth, the serpent of the brand's death, this sort of eye gaze of youth. I have felt the hilt aforetime. I have felt how the letters run, on each side of the trench of blood in the point of that glorious one. O mother of kings, we shall live and the days shall be sweet. I have loved thee well aforetime, I shall love thee more when we meet. Then Sigmund heard the sword point smite on the stone wall side, and slowly mid the darkness therethrough he heard it ride, as against it bore sympathy, but he cried out at the last, it bitteth, O my fosterer. It cleaves the earth bone fast. Now learn we the craft of the masons that another day may come, when we build a house for King Siggeir, a straight unlovely home. Then in the great mound's darkness did Sigmund the king upstand, and unto that saw of battle he set his naked hand. And heart the gift of Odin home to their breasts they drew. Sobbed Sigmund, sobbed sympathy, till the stone was cleft at woe, and they met and kissed together, then they hewed and heaved full hard, till lo, through the bursting rafters the winter heavens be starred. And they leap out merry-hearted. Nor is there need to say, many words between them of whither was the way. For they took the night watch sleeping, and slew them one and all, and then on the winter faggots they made them haste to fall, they piled the oak trees cloven, and when the oak beams fail, they bear the ash and the ruin, and build a mighty bale, about the dwelling of Siggeir, and lay the torch therein. Then they drew their swords and watched it till the flames began to win, hard onto the mid-hall's rafters, and those feasters of the folk, as the fire flakes fell among them, to their last of days awoke. By the gable door stood Sigmund, and fierce infinitely stood, red lit by the door of the women in a lane of blazing wood, to death each doorway opened, and death was in the hall. Then amid the gathered Goth folk and Siggeir the king to call, who lit the fire I burn in, and what shall buy me peace? Will he take my heaped up treasure, or 10 years of my fields, increase? Or hath my father's kingdom? O toilers at the oar, O wasters of the sea plain, now labor ye no more! But take the gifts I bid you, and lie upon the gold, and clothe your limbs in purple and the silken women hold. But a great voice cried over the fire, nay, no such men are we, no tuggers at the hawser, no wasters of the sea, we will have the gold and the purple when we list such things to win, but now we think on our fathers, and avenging of our kin. Not all King Siggeir's kingdom, and not all the world's increase, forever and forever, shall buy thee life and peace. For now is the tree thou blossom that sprang from murder's seed, and the dead doomed and the buried are they that do the deed. Now when the dead shall ask thee by whom thy days were done, thou shalt say by Sigmund Volsung, and Sinfidly, Sunny's son. Then stark fear fell on the earl folk, and silent they abide, amid the flaming tenfold. And again the great voice cried, as the Goth king's golden pillars grew red amidst the blaze, you women of the Goth folk, come forth upon your ways. And thou, Sunny, O my sister, come forth from death and tell, that beneath the boughs of the branstock once more we twain may dwell. Forth came the white-faced women and cast Sinfidly's sword, free by the glaive of Odin the trembling pale ones poured, but amid their hurrying terror came never Sunny's feet. And the pearls of the throne of Siggeir shrunk in the fervent heat. Then the men of war surged outward to the twofold doors of Bane, but there played the sword of Sigmund amidst the fiery lane, before the gable doorway, and by the woman's door, Sinfidly sang to the sword edge amid the balefires fire's roar, and back again to the burning the earls of the Goth folk shrank, and the light low licked the tables, and the wine of Siggeir drank. Lo now to the woman's doorway, the still watched bower of flame, clad in her queenly raiment King Volsung's daughter came, before Sinfidly's sword point. And she said, O my dear son, best now is our departing in the day my grief hath won, and the many days of toiling, and the travail of my womb, and the hate, and the fire of longing, thou, son, and this day of the doom, hath long been as one to my heart. And now shall I leave you both, and well ye may wot of the slumber my heart is nothing loth, and all the more, as, meseemeth, thy day shall not be long, to weary thee with labor and linger on with wrong. Yea, and I wot that the dim eye thine eyes had never seen, save for a great king's murder and the shame of the mighty queen. But let thy soul, I charge thee, o'er all these things prevail, to make thy short day glorious and leave a goodly tale. She kissed him and departed, and on to Sigmund went, as now again the dawning grey through the winter bend. As the night and the morning mingled he saw her face once more, and he deemed it fair and ruddy as in the days of yore. Yet fast the tears fell from her, and the sobs upheaved her breast, and she said, my youth was happy. But this hour belike is best, of all the days of my life tide, that soon shall have an end. I have come to greet thee, Sigmund, then back again must I wend, for his bed the god king diedeth, I have lain therein, time was, and loath to sleep I won there, but lo, how all things pass, and hearts are changed and softened, for lovely now it seems. Yet fear not my forgetting, I shall see thee in my dreams, a mighty king of the world neath the boughs of the Branstock green, with thine earls and thy lords about thee as the Volsung fashion hath been. And there shall all ye remember how I loved the Volsung name, nor spare to send forth bloom my joy, and my life, and my fame. For hear thou, that Sinfitli, who hath wrought out a desire, who hath compassed about King Siggeir with a sea of a deadly fire, who brake thy grave asunder, my child and thine he is, begot in that house of the dwarf kind for no other end than this. The son of Volsung's daughter, the son of Volsung's son. Look, look! Might another helper this deed with thee have done? And indeed as the word she uttereth, high up the red flames flare, to the nether floor of the heavens, and yet men see them there, the golden roofs of Siggeir, the hall of the silver door, that the gods and the gods had builded to last forevermore. She said, farewell, my brother, for the earls my candles light, and I must wend me bedward lest I lose the flower of night. And soft and sweet she kissed him, ere she turned about again, and a little while was Signy beheld of the eyes of men. And as she crossed the threshold day brightened at her back, nor once did she turn her earthward from the reek and the whirling rack, but fair in the fashion of queens passed on to the heart of the hall. And then King Siggeir's roof tree upheaved for its utmost full, and its huge walls clashed together, and its mean and lowly things, the fire of death confounded with the tokens of the kings. A sign for many people on the land of the gods it lay, a lamp of the earth none needed, for the bright sun brought the day. How Sigmund cometh to the land of the Volsungs again, and of the death of Sinfitli his son. Now Sigmund the king bestirs him, in Sinfitli, Sigmund's son, and they gather a host together, and many a mighty one. Then they set the ships in the sea flood and sail from the stranger's shore, and the beaks of the golden dragons see the Volsungs land once more, and men's hearts are fulfilled of joyance. And they cry, the sun shines now, with never a curse to hide it, and they shall weep that sow. Then for many a day sits Sigmund neath the boughs of the Branstock green, with his earls and lords about him as the Volsung wont hath been. And oft he thinketh on Signy, and oft he nameth her name, and tells how she spent her joyance and her life, the days and her fame, that the Volsung kin might blossom and bear the fruit of worth, for the hope of unborn people and the harvest of the earth. And again he thinks of the word that he spake that other day, how he should abide though lonely when his kin was passed away, their glory and sole avenger, thereafter summer's pain. And now for their fame's advancement, and the latter days to speed, he wedded a wife of the king folk. Vorheld she had to name. And the woman was fair and lovely, and bore him sons of fame. Men called them Hammond and Helgi, and when Helgi first saw light, there came the Norns to his cradle and gave him life full bright, and called him son that held sharp sword, and land of rings, and bade him be lovely and great, and a joy in the tale of kings. And he waxed up fair and mighty, and no worser than their word, and sweet are the tales of his life days, and the wonders of his sword, and the maid of his shield that he wedded, and how he changed his life, and of marvels wrought in the great mound where he rested from the strife. But the tale of Sinfitli telleth, that wide in the world he went, and many a wall of ravens the edge of his bore a flame rent. And oft he drave the war prey and wasted many a land, amidst King Hunding's battle he strengthened Helgi's hands. And he went before the banners amidst the steel-grown wood, when the sons of Hunding gathered and Helgi's hope withstood, nor less he nor the war swallowed in Helgi's glorious day, when the kings of the hosts of the wolf crag set the battle in array. Then upheld by his father's high seat he wore the winter through. and the marvel of all men he was, for the deeds whereof they knew, and the deeds whereof none wotted, and the deeds to follow after. And yet but a little while he loved the song and the laughter, and the wine that was drunk in peace, and the swordless lying down, and the deepless day's uprising, and the ungirt golden gown. And he thought of the word of his mother, that his day should not be long, to weary his soul with labor or mingle wrong with wrong. And his heart was exceeding hungry o'er all men to prevail, and make his short day glorious and leave a goodly tale. So when green leaves were lengthening and the spring was come again, he set his ships in the sea flood and sailed across the main. And the brother of Queen Borholt was his fellow in the war, a king of hosts hight Gudrod. And each to each they swore, in plotted troth for the helping, and the parting of the prey. Now a long way over the sea flood they went ashore on a day, and fought with the mighty folk king, and overcame at last. Then wide about his kingdom the net of steel they cast, and the prey was great and goodly that they drave unto the strand. But a greedy heart is Gudrod, and a king of griping hand, though not he blenched from the battle. So he speaks on a morning, fair, and saith, upon the foreshore the booty will we share, if thou wilt help me, fellow, before we sail our ways. Sinfully laughed, and answered, o'er short methinks the days, that two kings of war should chapel like merchants of the men. I will come again in the even and look on thy dealings then, and take the share thou godest. Then he went his ways withal, and drank day long in his warship as in his father's hall. And came again in the even. Now hath Gudrod shared the spoil, and throughout that day of summer not light had been his toil, forsooth his heap was the lesser. But sinfully looked thereon, and saw that a goodly getting had Borholt brother won. Clean limbed and stark were the horses, and the neat were fattened, sleek, and the men thralls young and stalwart, and the women young and meek. Fair gilt was the harness of battle, and the raiment fresh and bright, and the household stuff new fashioned for lords and earls' delight. On his own then looked sinfully, and great it was forsooth, but how foundered were the horses, and a sight for all men's ruth, were the thin-ribbed hungry cow kind. And the thralls both tall and queen, were the wilful, the weak, and the witless, and the old and the ill-beseen. Spoiled was the harness and house gear, and the raiment rags of cloth. Now Sinfully's men beheld it and grew exceeding wroth, but Sinfully laughed and answered, the day's work hath been meet, thou hast done well, war brother, to sift the chaff from the wheat, not of kings' sons to meddle with the refuse of the earth, nor shall warriors burden their long ships with things of nothing worth. Then he cried across the sea strand in a voice exceeding great, depart, ye thralls of the battle. Ye have naught to do to wait. Old, young, and good, and evil, depart and share the spoil, that burden of the battle, that spring and seed of toil. But thou king of the greedy heart, thou king of the thievish grip, what now wilt thou bear to the sea strand and set within my ship, to buy thy life from the slain? Unmeet for kings to hear, of a king the breaker of troth, of a king the stealer of gear. Then mad wroth waxed King Gudrod, and he cried, stand up, my men, and slay this wood abider lest he slay his brothers again. But no sword left from its sheath, and his men shrank back in dread. Then Sinfully's brow grew smoother, and at last he spake and said, indeed thou art very brother of my father Sigmund's wife. Wilt thou do so much for thine honor, wilt thou do so much for thy life, as to bide my sword on the island in the pale of the hazel wands? For I know thee no battle blencher, but a valiant man of thine hands. Now not King Gudrod gainsayeth, and men died the Hazel field, and there on the morrow morning they flashed the sword and shield, and the fallow blades are leaping. Short is the tale to tell, for with the third stroke stricken to field King Gudrod fell. So there in the home they lay him, and plenty of store of gold, Sinfully lays beside him amid that hall of mold. For he gripped, said the son of Sigmund, and gathered for such a day. Then Sinfully and his fellows o'er the sea flood sail away, and come to the land of the Volsungs, but Borholt heareth the tale, and into the hall she cometh with eager face and pale, as the kings were feasting together, and glad was Sigmund grown, of the words of Sinfully's battle, and the tale of his great renown, and there sat the sons of Borholt, and they hearkened and were glad, of their brother born in the wild wood, and the crown of fame he had. So she stood before King Sigmund, and spread her hands abroad. I charge thee now, King Sigmund, as thou art the Volsung's lord, to tell me of my brother, why cometh he not from the sea? Quoth Sinfotli, well thou wottest, and the tale hath come to thee, the white swords met in the island. Bright there did the war shields shine, and there thy brother abideth, for his hand was worser than mine. But she heeded him never a whit, but cried on Sigmund and said, I charge thee now, King Sigmund, as thou art the lord of my bed, to drive this wolf of the kingfolk from out thy guarded land, lest all we of thine house and kindred should fall beneath his hand. Then spake King Sigmund the Volsung, when thou hast heard the tale, thou shalt know that somewhat thy brother of his oath to my son did fail. Nor fell the man all sackless, nor yet need Sigmund's son, for any slain in sword field to any soul atone. Yet for the love I bear thee, and because thy love I know, and because the man was mighty, and far field would go, I will lay down a mighty were-guile, a heap of the ruddy gold. But no word answered Borhild, for her heart was grim and cold. And she went from the hall of the feasting, and lay in her bower a while. Nor speech she took, nor gave it, but brooded deadly guile. And now again on the morrow to Sigmund the king she went, and she said that her wrath hath failed her, and that well is she content to take the king's atonement. And she kissed him soft and sweet, and she kissed Sinfotli his son, and sat down in the golden seat, all merry and glad by seeming, and blithe to most and least. And again she biddeth King Sigmund that he hold a funeral feast, for her brother slain on the island, and not he gainsayeth her will. And so on and eve of the autumn doom and the beakers fill, and the earls are gathered together neath the boughs of the brand's soft rain. Their gold-clad mid the feasting went Borhild, Sigmund's queen, and she poured the wine for Sinfotli, and smiled in his face and said, drink now of this cup from mine hand, and bury we hate that is dead. So he took the cup from her fingers, nor drank but pondered long, o'er the gathering days of his labor, and the intermingled wrong. Now he sat by the side of his father. And Sigmund spake a word, O son, why sittest thou silent mid the glee of earl and lord? I look in the cup, quoth Sinfotli, and hate therein I see. Well looked it is, said Sigmund. Give thou the cup to me, and he drained it dry to the bottom. For ye mind how it was writ, that this king might drink of venom, and have no hurt of it. But the song sprang up in the hall, and merry was Sigmund's heart, and he drank of the wine of kingfolk and thrust all care apart. Then the second time came Borhild and stood before the twain, and she said, O valiant stepson, how oft shall I say it in vain, that my hate for thee hath perished, and the love hath sprouted green? Wilt thou thrust my gift away, and shame the hand of a queen? So he took the cup from her fingers, and pondered over it long, and thought on the labor that should be, and the wrong that amendeth wrong. Then spake Sigmund the king, O son, what aileth thine heart, when the earls of men are merry, and thrust all care apart? But he said, I have looked in the cup, and I see the deadly snare. Well seen it is, quoth Sigmund, but thy burden I may bear. And he took the beaker and drained it, and the song rose up in the hall. And thereby God King Sigmund his latter days befall. But again came Borhild the queen and stood with the cup in her hand, and said, They are idle liars, those singers of every land, who sing how thou fearest nothing. For thou losest the lure and might, and art fain to live forever. Then she stretched forth her fingers white, and he took the cup from her hand, nor drank, but pondered long, of the toil that begetteth toil, and the wrong that beareth wrong. But Sigmund turned him about, and he said, What aileth thee, son? Shall our life days never be merry, and your labor never be done? But Sinfotli said, I have looked, and lo there is death in the cup. And the song, and the tinkling of harpstrings to the roof tree, winded up, and Sigmund was dreaming with wine in the wearing of many a year. And the noise and the glee of the people is the sound of the wild woods were, and the blossoming boughs of the brand's top were the wild trees, waving about. So he said, Well seen, my fosterling. Let the lid then strain it out. Then Sinfotli laughed and answered, I drink unto Odin then, and the flowers of and God home, the lords of the lives of men. He drank as he spake the word, and forth with the venom ran, in a chill flood over his heart. and down fell the mighty man, with never an utter death word and never a death-changed look, and the floor of the hall of the Volsungs beneath his falling shook. Then up rose the Elder of Days with a great and bitter cry, and lifted the head of the fallen, and none durst come anigh, to hearken the words of his sorrow, if any words he said, but such as the father of all men might speak over Balder dead. And again, as before the death stroke, waxed the hull of the Volsungs dim, and once more he seemed in the forest, where he spake with naught but him. Then he lifted him up from the hall floor and bore him on his breast, and men who saw sinfully deemed his heart had gotten rest, and his eyes were no more dreadful. Forth fared the Volsung child, with Sunny's sun through the doorway. And the wind was great and wild, and the moon rode high in the heavens, and whiles it shone out bright, and whilst the clouds drew over. So went he through the night, until the dwellings of menfolk were a long while left behind. Then came he unto the thicket and the houses of the wind, and the feet of the hoary mountains, and the dwellings of the deer, and the heaths without a shepherd, and the houseless dales and drear. Then lo, a mighty water, a rushing flood and wide, and no ferry for the shipless. So he went along its side, as a man that seeketh somewhat, but it widened toward the sea, and the moon sank down in west, and he went o'er a desert lea. But lo, in that dusk ere the dawning a glimmering over the flood, and the sound of the cleaving of waters, and Sigmund the Volsung stood by the edge of the swirling eddy, and a white-sailed boat he saw, and its keel ran light on the strand with the last of the dying flaw. But therein was a man most muddy, grey-clad like a mountain cloud, one-eyed and seeming ancient, and he spake and held him aloud. Now whither away, King Sigmund, for thou farest far tonight? Spake the king, I would cross this water, for my life hath lost its light, and mayhap there be deeds for a king to be found on the further shore. My thunders, quoth the shipman, bade me waft a great king o'er, so set thy burden a shipboard, for the night's face looks toward day. So betwixt the earth and the water his son did Sigmund lay. But lo, when he fain would follow, there was neither ship nor man, nor aught but his empty bosom beside that water end, that widened by little and little as the night's face looked to the day. So he stood a long while gazing, and then turned and gat him away. And ere the sun of the noontide across the meadows shone, Sigmund the king of the Volsungs was set in his father's throne, and he hearkened and doomed and portioned, and did all the deeds of a king. So the autumn waned and perished, and the winter brought the spring. Of the last battle of King Sigmund, and the death of him. Now a slain Bornhall driven from the Volsung's bed and board, and unwedded sitteth Sigmund an exceeding mighty lord, and fared off to the war field, and added fame to fame, and where are the great ones told of his sons shall the people name. But short was their day of harvest and their reaping of renown, and while men stood by to marvel they gained their latest crown. So Sigmund alone abideth of all the Volsung seen, and the folk that the gods had fashioned lest the earth should lack a deed, and he said, the tree was stalwart, but its boughs are old and worn. Where now are the children departed, that amidst my life were born? I know not the men about me, and they know not of my ways. I am not but a picture of battle, and a song for the people to praise. I must strive with the deeds of my kingship, and yet when mine hour is come, it shall meet me as glad as the goodman when he bringeth the last load home. Now there was a king of the islands, whom the tale doth Elimi call, and said he was wise and valiant, though his kingdom were but small. He had one only daughter that Theodas had to name, a woman wise and shapely beyond the praise of fame. And now said the son of King Volsung that his time is short enow, to labor the Volsung garden, and the hand must be set to the plow. So he sendeth an earl of the people to King Elimi's high built hall, bearing the gifts and the tokens, and this word in his mouth withal. King Sigmund the son of Volsung hath sent me here with a word, that plenty is good of thy daughter among all folk he hath heard, and he would that wisest of women that she may sit on his throne, and lie in the bed of the Volsungs, and be his wife alone. And he said that he thinketh surely she shall bear the kings of the earth, and may be the best and the greatest of all who are deemed of worth. Now hereat would he have an answer within a half-month space, and these gifts meanwhile he giveth for the increase of thy grace. So King Elimi hearkened the message, and hath no word to say, for an earl of King Lingi the mighty is come that very day, he too for the wooing of Theodas, and Lingi's realm is at hand. But afar King Sigmund abideth o'er many a sea and land, and the man is young and eager, and grim and guileful of mood. At last he saith, Abide here such space as thou deemest good, but to morn shalt thou have thy answer that thy heart may the lighter be, for the hearkening of harp and songcraft, and the dealing with game and glee. Then he went to Queen Eordis' bower, where she worked in the silk, and the gold, the deeds of the world that should be, and the deeds that were of old. And he stood before her and said, I have spoken a word, time was, that thou should rule thy wedding. And now hath it come to pass, that again 2 kings of the people will woo thy body to bed. So she rose to her feet and hearkened, and which be they? She said. He spake, the first is Lingi, a valiant man and a fair, a neighbor for thy father, if a foe's name he must bear, and the next is King Sigmund the Volsung of a land far over sea, and well thou knowest his kindred, and his might and his valency, and the tales of his heart of a god. And though old he be waxen now,
Matt
yet men deem
Zucker.
that the white rolls blossom from Sigmund's loins, shall grow. Said Eordis, I wot, my father, that here of me strife arise. Yet soon spoken is my answer. For I, who am called wise, shall I trust by the praise of the people, and the tale that no ending hath, and the love in the heart of the godlike, and the heavenward leading path. For the rose and the stem of the lily, and the smooth lips, young woman's kiss, and the eyes desire that passeth, and the frail unstable bliss. Now shalt thou tell King Sigmund, that I deem it the crown of my life, to dwell in the house of his fathers amidst all peace and strife, and to bear the sons of his body. And indeed full well I know, that fair from the loins of Sigmund shall such a stem outgrow, that all folk of the earth shall be praising the womb where once he lay, and the pact that his lips have cherished, and shall bless my happy day. Now the king's heart sore misgave him, but herewith must he be content, and great gifts to the Earl of Lingi, and a word withal he sent, that the woman's troth was plighted to another people's king. That King Sigmund's Earl on the morrow hath joyful gay saying, and ere 2 moons be perished he shall fetch his bride away. And bid him, King Lingi said, to come with no small array, but with sword and shield and war shaft, lest aught ill betide. So forth goes the Earl of Sigmund across the sea flood wide, and comes to the land of the Volsungs, and meets Sigmund the king, and tells how he sped on his errand, and the joyful gay saying. So King Sigmund maketh him ready, and they ride down to the sea, all glorious of gear and raiment, and a goodly company. Yet hath Sigmund thought of his father, and the deed he wrought before, and hath sworn to gather his people and all his hosts of war, to unto the feast and the wedding. Yet are their long ships 10, and the shielded folk aboard them are the mightiest men of men. So Sigmund goeth shipboard, and they hoist their sails to the wind, and the beasts of the golden dragons leave the Volsung's land behind. Then come they to Elimi's kingdom, and good welcome have they there, and when Sigmund looked on Eordis, he deemed her wise and fair. But her heart was exceeding faint when she saw the glorious king, and it told her of times that should befall many a noble thing. So there is Sigmund wedded at a great and goodly feast, and day by day on Eordis the joy of her heart increased. And her father joyed in Sigmund and his might and majesty, and dead in the heart of the Isle King his ancient fear did lie. Yet, forsooth, had men looked seaward, they had seen the gathering cloud, and the little wind arising, that should one day fight so loud. For well may you wot indeed that King Lingi the mighty is wroth, when he getteth the gifts and the answer, and that tale of the woman's troth. And he said he will have the gifts and the woman herself withal, either for loving or hating, and that both those heads shall fall. So now when Sigmund and Eordis are wedded a month or more, and the Volsung bids men dive them to cross the sea flood o'er, lo, how there cometh the tidings of measureless mighty hosts, who are gotten ashore from their long ships on the skirts of King Elimi's coasts. So boded the heart of the Isle King of what the end should be. But Sigmund long beheld him, and he said, Thou deemst of me, that my coming hath wrought thee evil. But put aside such things. For long have I lived, and I know it, that the lives of mighty kings are not cast away, nor drifted like the down before the wind. And surely I know, who say it, that never would Eordis mind, have been turned to what King Lingi or aught but the Volsung seed. Come, go we forth to the battle, that shall be the latest deed, how thee need me seemeth, yea, whether thou live or die, no more shall the brand of Odin at peace in his scabbard lie. And Therewith he brake the peace strings and drew the blade of bale, and death on the point abided, fear sat on the edges pale. So men rode down to the sea strand, and the kings their hosts array, when the high noon flooded heaven. And the men of the Volsungs lay, with King Enemies shielded champions Midlanges hosts of war, as the brown pits lie in the apple when ye cut it through the core. But now when the kings were departed, from the king's house Theodis went, and before men joined the battle she came to a woody bend, where she lay with one of her maidens the death and the deed stood, behold. In the noon sun shone King Sigmund as an image all of gold, and he stood before the foremost and the banner of his fame, and many a thing he remembered, and he called on each earl by his name, to do all for the house of the Volsungs, and the ages yet unborn. Then he tossed up the sword of the Brandstag, and blew on his father's horn, dreaded so many a battle, doom song of so many a man. Then all the earthly moving as the hosts of Lindsey ran, on the Volsung men and the Isle folk like wolves upon the prey. But sore was their labor and toil ere the end of their harvesting day. On went the Volsung banners, and on went Sigmund before, and his sword was the flail of the tiller on the wheat of the wheat thrashing floor, and his shield was rent from his arm, and his helm was sheared from his head, but who may draw nigh him to smite for the heath and the rampart out, dead! White went his hair on the wind like the ragged drift of the cloud, and his dust-driven, blood-beaten harness was the death storm's angry shroud, when the summer sun is departing in the first of the night of wrath. And his sword was the cleaving lightning, that smites and is hurried aback, ere the hand may rise against it. And his voice was the following thunder. Then cold grew the battle before him, dead chilled with the fear and the wonder, for again in his ancient eyes the light of victory gleamed. From his mouth from tuneful and sweet the song of his kindred streamed. And no more was he worn and weary, and no more his life seemed spent, and with all the hope of his childhood was his wrath of battle blend. And he thought, a little further, and the river of strife is past, and I shall sit triumphant the king of the world at last. But lo, through the hedge of the war shafts a mighty man there came, one-eyed and seeming ancient, but his visage shone like flame, gleaming grey was his kirtle, and his hood was cloudy blue. And he bore a mighty twy-bill, as he waded the fight sheaves through, and stood face to face with Sigmund, and upheaved the bill to smite. Once more round the head of the Volsung fierce glittered the Brandstag's light, the sword that came from Odin. And Sigmund's cry once more rang out to the very heavens above the din of war. Then clashed the meeting edges with Sigmund's latest stroke, and in shivering shards fell earthward that fear of worldly folk. But changed were the eyes of Sigmund, and the war wrath left his face. For that great-clad mighty helper was gone, and in his place, drave on the unbroken spearwood gains the Volsung's empty hands, and there they smote down Sigmund, the wonder of all lands, on the foeman, on the death heap his deeds had piled that day. Ill hour for Sigmund's fellows. They fall like the seeded hay, before the brown side sweeping, and there the Isle King fell, in the forefront of his battle, wherein he wrought right well, and soon they were not but foemen who stand upon their feet, on the isle strand by the ocean where the grass and the sea sand meet. And now hath the conquering war king another deed to do, and he saith, who now gainsayeth King Lindsey come to woo, the lord in the overcomer and the bane of the Volsung kin. So he fares to the Isle King's dwelling a wife of the kings to win. And the host is gathered together, and they leave the field of the dead. And round as it taught the god folk the moon e'er set red. And so when the last is departed, and she deems they will come not, aback, fares Theodis forth from the thicket to the field of the faithful rock, and half dead was her heart for sorrow as she waited the swaths of the sword. Not far did she search the death field ere she found her king and lord, on the heap that his glaive had fashioned, not yet was his spirit past, though his hurts were many and grievous, and his life blood ebbing fast. And glad were his eyes and open as her wan face over him hung, and he spake, thou art sick with sorrow, and I would thou wert not so young. Yet as my days past shall thine pass. And a short while now it seems, since my hand first gripped the sword hilt, and my glory was but in dreams. She said, thou livest, thou livest. The leeches shall heal thee, still. Nay, said he, my heart hath hearkened to Odin's bidding and will. For today have mine eyes beheld him, nay, he needed not to speak, forsooth I knew of his message and the thing he came to see. And now do I live but to tell thee of the days that are yet to come, and perchance to solace thy sorrow. And then will I get me home, to my kin that are gone before me. Lo, yonder where I stood, the shards of a glaive of battle that was once the best of the good, take them and keep them surely. I have lived no empty days. The Norns were my nursing mothers. I have won the people's praise. When the gods for one deed asked me, I ever gave them twain. Spendthrift of glory I was, and great was my life day's gain. Now these shards have been my fellow in the work the gods would have, but today hath Odin taken the gift that once he gave. I have wrought for the Volsungs truly, and yet have I known full well, that a better one than I am shall bear the tale to tell, and for him shall these shards be smithied. And he shall be my son, to remember what I have forgotten and to do what I left undone. Under thy girdle he leave, and how shall I say unto thee, the wise of women, to cherish him hatefully? Now, wife, put by thy sorrow for the little day we have had. For in sooth I deem thou weepest, the days have been fair and glad, and our valor and wisdom have met, and thou knowest they shall not die. Sweet and good were the days, nor yet to the fates did we cry, for a little longer yet, and a little longer to live, but we took, we twain in our meeting, all gifts that they had to give, our wisdom and valor have kissed, and thine eyes shall see the fruit, and the joy for his days that shall be hath pierced mine heart to the root. Grieve not for me, for thou weepest that thou canst not see my face, how its beauty is not departed, nor the hope of mine eyes grown base. Indeed I am waxen weary, but who heedeth weariness, that hath been day long on the mountain in the winter weather's stress, and now stands in the lighted doorway and seeth the king draw nigh, and heareth men dining the banquet, and the bed wherein he shall lie. Then failed the voice of Sigmund. But so mighty was the man, that a long while yet he lingered till the dusky night grew wan, and she sat and sorrowed o'er him, but no more a word he spake. Then a long way over the sea flood the day began to break. And when the sun was arisen a little he turned his head, till the low beams bathed his eyne, and there lay Sigmund dead. And the sun rose up on the earth. But where was the Volsungkin, and the folk that the gods had begotten the praise of all people, to win? How King Sigmund the Volsung was laid in mount on the seaside of the Alrealm. Now Heordis looked from the dead, and her eyes strayed down to the sea, and a shielded ship she saw, and a war-die company, who beached the ship for the landing. So swift she fled away, and once more to the depth of the thicket, wherein her handmaid lay. And she said, I have left my lord, and my lord is dead and gone, and he gave me a charge full heavy, and here are we twain alone, and earls from the sea are landing. Give me thy blue attire, and take my purple and gold in my crown. Of the sea floods fire, and be thou the wife of King Volsung when men of our name shall ask, and I will be the handmaid. Now I bid thee to this task, and I pray thee not to fail me, because of thy faith and truth, and because I have ever loved thee, and thy mother fostered my youth, yea, because my womb is wealthy with a gift for the days to be. Now do this deed for mine asking, and the tale shall be told to thee. So the other not gainsaid it, and they shipped their raiment there, but well spoken was the maiden, and a woman tall and fair. Now the lord of those new coming men was a king and the son of a king, King Elf the son of the Helper, and he sailed from warfaring, and drew anigh to the isle realm and sailed along the strand. For the shipman needed water and fain would go aland. And King Elf stood hard by the tiller while the world was yet cold. Then the red sun lit the dawning, and they looked, and lo, behold, the wrack of a mighty battle, and heaps of the shielded dead, and a woman alive amidst them, a queen with crowned head, and her eyes straight down to the sea strand, and she saw that, with own folk, and turned and fled to the thicket. Then the lord of the shipmen spoke, Lo, here shall we lack for water, for the brooks with blood shall run, yet when we shore to behold it and to water the deeds lay done. So they turned their faces to Sigmund, and waited the swans of the sword. Oh, look ye long, said the Sea King, for here lead the mighty lord, and all these are the deeds of his war flame, yet hardy hearts, be sure, that they once durst look in his face or the wrath of his eye endure. Though his lips be glad and smiling as a god that dreameth of mirth. Would God I were one of his kindred, for none such are left upon earth. Now fare we into the thicket, for there too is the woman fled, and belike she shall tell us the story of this field of the mighty dead. So they went and find the women, and bespeak them kind and fair. Then spake the gold crown handmaid, of the All King's house we were, and I am the queen called Theodis. And the man that lies on the field was my own Lord Sigmund the Volsung, the mightiest under shield. Then all amazed were the sea folk when they hearkened to that word, and great and heavy tidings they deemed their ears have heard. But again spake out the sea king, and this blue-clad one beside, so pale, and as tall as a goddess, and white and lovely-eyed? In sooth and in truth, said the woman, my serving maid is this. She hath wept long over the battle, and sore afraid she is. Now the king looks hard upon her, but he saith no word thereto, and down again to the death field with the women folk they go. There they set their hands to the labor, and amidst the deadly mead, they raise a mound for Sigmund, a mighty house indeed. And therein they set that folk king, and goodly was his throne, and dyed with gold and scarlet, and the walls of the house were done with the cloven shields of the foemen, and banners borne to field. But none might find his war helm or the splinters of his shield, and clenched and fast was his right hand, but no sword therein he had, for Herodes spake to the shipmen, our lord and master bade, that the shards of his glaive of battle should go with our lady the queen, and by them that lie a dying a many things are seen. So there lies Sigmund the Volsung, and far away, forlorn, o'er the blossomed boughs of the Brennstech, and the house where he was born. To what end was wrought that roof ridge, and the rings of the silver door, and the fair carved golden high seat, and the many pictured floor, worn down by the feet of the Volsungs? Or the hangings of delight, or the marvel of its harp strings, or the dwarf-wrought beakers bright? Then the gods have fashioned the folk who have fashioned the house in vain. It is not, and for naught they battled, and naught was their joy, and their pain. Lo, the noble oak of the forest with his feet in the flowers and grass, how the winds that bear the summer o'er its topmost branches pass, and the wood deer dwell beneath it, and the fowl in its fair twigs sing, and there it stands in the forest, an exceeding glorious thing. Then come the axes of men, and lo it lies on the ground, and the crane comes out of the southland, and its nest is nowhere found, and barren shorn. Of its blossoms is the house of the deer of the wood, but the tree is a golden dragon. And fair it floats on the flood, and beareth the kings and the earl folk, and his shield hung all without, and exceed the blaze of the beacons, and ere the war gods shout. There are tidings wherever it cometh, and the tale of its time shall be told. A dear name it hath got like a king, and a fame that groweth not old. Lo, such is the Volsung dwelling. Lo, such is the deed he hath wrought, who labored all his life days, and had rest but little or naught, who died in the broken battle, who lies with swordless hand, in the realm that the foe hath conquered on the edge of a stranger land. How Queen Eordis is known, and how she abided in the house of Elf, the son of the Helper. Now ask ye the king of those women where now in the world they will go, and Eordis speaks for the twain. This is now but a land of the foe, and our lady and queen beseecheth that unto thine house we wend, and that there thou serve her kingly that her woes may have an end. Fain then was the heart of the folk king, and he bade aboard, forthright. And they hoist the sails to the wind and sail by day and by night, till they come to a land of the people, and a goodly land it is, where folk may dwell unworried and win abundant bliss, the land of King Elf and the Helper. And there he bids them abide, in his house that is goodly shapen, and wrought full high and wide, and he biddeth the queen be merry, and set aside her woe, and he doth buy them better and better, as day on day doth go. Now there was the mother of Elf, and a woman wise was she, and she spake to her son of a morning, I have noted them heedfully. Those women thou bear UGHTST from the outlands, and fain now would I wot, why the worser of the women the goodlier gear hath got. He said, she hath named her Heordis, the wife of the mightiest king, e'en Sigmund the son of Volsung with whose name the world doth ring. Then the old queen laughed and answered, is it not so, my son, that the handmaid still gave counsel when aught of deeds was done? He said, yea, she spake mostly, and her words were exceeding wise. And measureless sweet I deem her, and dear she is to mine eyes. But she said, do after my counsel, and win thee a goodly queen. Speak ye to the twain unwearied, and the truth shall soon be seen, and again shall they ship the raiment, if I am aught but a fool. He said, Thou sayest well, mother, and settest me well to school. So he spake on a day to the women, and said to the gold-clad one, How wottest thou in the winter of the coming of the sun, when yet the world is darkling? She said, In the days of my youth, I dwelt in the house of my father, and fair was the tide forsooth, and ever I woke at the dawning, for folk betimes must stir, be the meadows bright or darksome. And I drank of the weight up there, as much as the heart desired. And now, though changed be the days, I wake athirst in the dawning, because of my wonted ways. Then laughed King Elfin answered, A fashion strange now, that the feet of the fair queen's daughter must forth to follow the plough, be the acres bright or darkling. But thou with the eyes of grey, what sign hast thou to tell thee, that the night wears into day, when the heavens are murk as a midnight? Said she, In the days that were, my father gave me this gold ring ye see on my finger here. And a marvel goeth with it, for when night waxeth old, I feel it on my finger grown most exceeding cold, and I know day comes through the darkness. And such is my dawning sign. Then laughed King Elfin answered, Thy father's house was fine. There was gold enough meseemeth, but come now, say the word, and tell me the speech thou spakest or all mine ears have heard, and that thou wert the wife of Sigmund, the wife of the mightiest king. No, which she smiled, but answered, Indeed thou sayest a thing, such a wealth I had in my storehouse that I feared the kings of men. He said, Yet for naught didst thou hide thee. Had I known of the matter then, as the daughter of my father had I held thee in good sooth, for dear to mine eyes wert thou waxen, and my heart of thy woe was, Ruth. But now shall I deal with thee better than thy dealings to me have been, for my wife I will bid thee to be, and the people's very queen. She said, When the son of King Sigmund is brought forth to the light of day, and the world a man hath gotten, thy will shall I not gainsay. And I thank thee for thy goodness, and I know the love of thine heart. And I see thy goodly kingdom, thy country set apart, with a day of peace begirdled from the change in the battle's rack. 'Tis enough, and more than enough, since none prate the past back. Then the king is fain and merry, and he deems his errand sped, and that night she sits on the high seat with a crown on her shapely head, and amidst the song and the joyance, and the sound of the people's praise, she thinks of the days that have been, and she dreams of the coming days. So passeth the summer season, and the harvest of the year, and the latter days of the winter on toward the springtide wear. Book 2. Regin. Now this is the first book of the life and death of Sigurd the Volsung, and therein is told of the birth of him, and of his dealings with Regin the master of masters, and of his deeds in the waste places of the earth. Of the birth of Sigurd the son of Sigmund. Peace lay on the land of the Helper and the house of Elf his son. Their merry men went bedward when their tide of toil was done, and glad was the dawn's awakening, and the noontide fair and glad. There no great store had the franklin, and enough the hireling had. And a child might go unguarded the length and breadth of the land, with a purse of gold at his girdle and gold rings on his hand. 'Twas a country of cunning craftsmen, and many a thing they wrought, that the lands of storm desired, and the homes of warfare sought. But men deemed it o'er well warded by more than its stems of fight, and told how its earth-born waters yet lived of plenteous might. So hidden was that country, and few men sailed at sea, and none came over its mountains of menfolk's company. But fair-fruited, many peopled, it lies a goodly strip, twixt the mountains cloudy-headed and the sea-flood surging lip, and a perilous flood is its ocean, and its mountains, who shall tell, what things in their dales deserted and their wind-swept heath may dwell? Now a man of the kings, called Gripper, in this land of peace abode, the son of the Helper's father, though never lay his load, in the womb of the mother of kings that the Helper's brethren bore. But of giant kin was his mother, of the folk that are seen no more. Though whilst as ye ride some fell road across the heath there comes the voice of their lone lamenting o'er their changed and conquered homes. A long way off from the sea strand and beneath the mountain's feet is the high-built hall of Gripper, where the waste and the tillage meet. A noble and plentiful house that a little menfolk fear, but beloved of the crag-dwelling eagles and the kin of the woodland deer. A man of few words was Gripper, but he knew of all deeds that had been, and times there came upon him, when the deeds to be were seen. No sword had he held in his hand since his father fell to field, and against the life of the slayer he bore undimmed shield. Yet no fear in his heart abided, nor desired he aught at all, but he noted the deeds that had been, and looked for what should befall. Again, in the house of the helper there dwelt a certain man, beardless and low of stature, of visage pinched and wan, so exceeding old was region, that no son of man could tell, in what year of the days passed over he came to that land to dwell, but the youth of King Elf had he fostered, and the helper's youth, thereto, yea and his father's fathers, the lore of all many knew, and was deft in every cunning, save the dealings of the sword. So sweet was his tongue speech fashioned, that men trowed his every word. His hand with the harp strings blended was the mingler of delight, with the latter days of sorrow. All tales he told aright. The master of the masters in the smithying craft was he, and he dealt with the wind and the weather in the stilling of the sea. Nor might any learn him leechcraft, for before that race was made, and that man-folk's generation, all their life days had he weighed. In this land abideth Theodis amid all people's praise, till cometh the time appointed, in the fullness of the days, through the dark and the dusk she travailed, till at last in the dawning hour, have the deeds of the Volsungs blossomed, and borne their latest flower. In the bed there lay the man-child, and his eyes looked straight on the sun, and lo, the hope of the people, and the days of the king are begun. Men say of the serving women, when they cried on the joy of the morn, when they handled the linen raiment, and washed the king newborn, when they bore him back unto Theodis, and the weary and happy breast, and bade her be glad to behold it, how the best was sprung from the best. Yet they shrank in their rejoicing before the eyes of the child, so bright and dreadful were they. Yea, though the spring morn smiled, and 1,000 birds were singing round the fair familiar home, and still as on other mornings they saw folk go and come, yet the hour seemed awful to them, and the hearts within them burned, as though of faithful matters their souls were newly learned. But Theodis looked on the Volsung, on her grief and her fond desire, and the hope of her heart was quickened, and her joy was a living fire. And she said, now one of the earthly on the eyes of my child hath gazed, nor shrunk before their glory, nor stayed her love amazed. I behold thee as Sigmund beholdeth, and I was the home of thine heart. Was me for the day when thou wert not, and the hour when we shall part. Then she held him a little season on her weary and happy breast, and she told him of Sigmund and Volsung in the best sprung forth from the best. She spake to the newborn baby as one who might understand, and told him of Sigmund's battle, and the dead by the sea floods, strand, and of all the wars passed over, and the light with darkness blend. So she spake, and the sun rose higher, and her speech at last was spent, and she gave him back to the women to bear forth to the people's kings, that they too may rejoice in her glory and her day of happy things. But there sat the helper of men with King Elf and his earls in the hall, and they spake of the deeds that had been, and told of the times to befall, and they hearkened and heard sweet voices and the sound of harps, draw nigh, till their hearts were exceeding merry, and they knew not wherefore, or why. Then, lo, in the hall white raiment, as thither the damsels came, and amid the hands of the foremost was the woven gold aflame. O daughters of earls, said the helper, what tidings then do ye bear? Is it grief in the merry morning, or joy or wonder or fear? Quoth the first, it is grief for the foemen that the masters of God home would grieve. Said the next, 'tis a wonder of wonders, that the hearkening world shall believe. A fear of all fears, said the third, for the sword is uplifted on men. A joy of all joys, said the fourth, once come, and it comes not again. Lo, son, said the ancient helper, glad sit the earls and the lords. Look'st thou not for a token of tidings to follow such like words? Said King Elf, great words of women, or great hath their dwelling become. Said the women, words shall be greater, when all folk shall praise our home. What then hath we deed? Said King Elf, do the high gods stand in our gate? Nay, said they, else were we silent, and they should be telling of fate. Is the bidding come, said the helper, that we win the gods to see? Many summers and winters, they said, ye shall live on the earth, it may be. Said a young man, will ye be telling that all we shall die no more? Nay, they answered, Nay, who knoweth but the change may be hard, at the door.
One more
Come
death
ships
hit.
from the sea, said an elder, with all gifts of thee, Eastern gold? Was there less than enough, said the women, when Lester, treasure was told? Speak then, said the ancient helper, let the worst and the best be said. Quoth they, 'tis the queen of the isle folk, she is weary sick on her bed. Said King Elf, yet ye come rejoicing. What more neath under the tongue? They said, the earth is weary, but the tender blade hath sprung, that shall wax till beneath its branches fair bloom the meadows green. For the gods and they that were mighty were glad erewhile with the queen. Said King Elf, how say ye, women? Of a king newborn do ye tell, by a god of the heavens begotten in our father's house to dwell?
I'm about to die.
By a god of the earth,
I'm gonna be
they
sneezing
answered.
and get my
But
head
greater
shot
yet
off.
is the sun, though long were the days of Sigmund, and great are the deeds he hath done.
Can you open fire?
Then she with a golden burden to the kingly high seat stepped, and away from the newborn baby the purple cloth she swept, and cried, O king of the people, long mayst thou live in bliss, as our hearts today are happy. Queen Io descends thee this, and she said that the world shall call it by the name that thou shalt name. Now the gift to thee is given, and to thee is brought the fame. Then e'en as a man astonished King Elf the Volsung took, while his feast halls ancient timbers with the cry of the earl folk shook. For the eyes of the child gleamed on him till he was as one who sees the very gods arising amid their carven images. To his ears there came a murmur of far seas beneath the wind, and the tramp of fierce-eyed warriors through the outland forest blind. The sound of hosts of battle, cries round the hoisted shield, low talk of the gathered wise ones in the godfolk's holy field. So they thought in a little knowing through King Elf the mighty wren, of the years and their building and burden, and toil of the sons of man, the joy of folk and their sorrow, and the hope of deeds to do. With the love of many peoples was the wise king smitten through, as he hung o'er the newborn Volsung. But at last he raised his head, and looked forth kind o'er his people, and spake aloud and said, O Sigmund king of battle, O man of many days, whom I saw mid the shields of the fallen and the dead men silent, praise, lo, how hath the dark tide perished and the dawn of day begun? And now, almighty Sigmund, wherewith shall we name thy son? But there rose up a man most ancient, and he cried, Hail dawn of the day! How many things shalt thou quicken? How many shalt thou slay? How many things shalt thou waken? How many lull to sleep? How many things shalt thou scatter? How many gather in keep? Tell me, how thy love shall cherish, how thine hate shall wither and burn, how the hope shall be set from thy right hand, nor the fear to thy left return. O thy deeds that men shall sing of, O thy deeds that the gods shall see. O Sigurd, son of the Volsungs, O victory yet to be. Men heard the name and they knew it, and they caught it up in the air, and it went abroad by the windows and the doors of the feast hall fair. It went through street and market. O'er meadow and acre it went, and over the wind-stirred forest and the dearth of the sea beat bend, and over the sea floods welter, till the folk of the fishers heard, and the hearts of the isle abiders on the sun-scorched rocks were stirred. But the queen in her golden chamber, the name she hearkened and knew, and she heard the flock of the women, as back to the chamber they drew, and the name of Sigurd entered, and the body of Sigurd was come, and it was as if Sigmund were living and she still in her lovely home. Of all folk of the world was she well, and a soul fulfilled of rest, as alone in the chamber she wakened and Sigurd cherished her breast. But men feast in the merry noontide, and glad is the April green, that of all sung looks on the sunlight and the night and the darkness, have been. Earls think of marvelous stories, and along the golden strings, flit words of banded brethren and names of war-famed kings, all the days of the deeds of Sigmund who was born so long ago. All deeds of the glorious Ine, and her tiring tide of woe. Men tell of the years of Volsung, and how long ago it was, that he changed his life in battle, and brought the tale to pass. Then goes the word of the giants, and the world seems waxen old, for the dimness of King Rurr and the tale of his warfare told, yet unhushed are the singers' voices, nor yet the heartstrings cease, while yet is left the rumor of the Mirkwood's broken peace, and of Siggy the very ancient, and the unnamed sons of God, of the days when the lords of heaven full oft the world waves trod. So still at the wind in the even and the sun sinks down in the sea, and men abide the morrow and the victory yet to be. Sigurd getteth to him the horse that is called Greyfell. Now waxeth the son of Sigmund in might and goodliness, and soft the days win over, and all men his beauty bless. But amidst the summer season was the Isle Queen Heordis wed, to King Elf the son of the Helper, and fair their life days sped. Peace lay on the land forever, and the fields gave good increase, and there was Sigurd waxing mid the plenty and the peace. Now hath the child grown greater, and is keen and eager of wit, and full of understanding, and oft hath he joy to sit amid talk of weighty matters when the wise men meet for speech. And joyous he is moreover, and blithe and kind with each. But Regin the wise craftsmaster heedeth the youngling well, and before the kings he cometh, and set such words to tell. I have fostered thy youth, King Elf, and thou no helper of men, and ye wot that such a master no king shall see again. And now would I foster Sigurd. For, though he be none of thy blood, mine heart of his days that shall be speaketh abundant good. Then spake the helper of menfolk, Yea, do herein thy will, for thou art the master of masters, and hast learned me all my skill, but think how bright is this youngling, and thy guile from him, withhold. For this craft of thine hath shown me that thy heart is grim and cold, though 3 men's lives thrice over thy wisdom might not learn. And I love this son of Sigmund, and mine heart to him doth yearn. Then Regin laughed, and answered, I doled out cunning to thee. But not with him will I measure, yet no cold heart shall he be, nor grim, nor evil-natured, for where my will might frame, gone forth is the word of the Norns, that abideth ever the same. And now, despite my cunning, how deem ye I shall die? And they said he would live as he listed, and at last in peace, should lie, when he listed to live no longer. So mighty and wise he was. But again he laughed and answered, One day it shall come to pass, that a beardless youth shall slay me, I know the fateful doom. But not may I withstand it, as it heaves up dim through the gloom. So is Sigurd now with Regin, and he learns him many things. Yea, all save the craft of battle, that men learn the sons of kings, the smithing sword and war coat, the carving runes right, the tongues of many countries, and soft speech for men's delight, the dealing with the harp strings, and the winding ways of song. So wise of heart waxed Sigurd, and of body wondrous strong, and he chased the deer of the forest, and many a wood wolf slew, and many a bull of the mountains, and the desert dales he knew, and the heaths that the wind sweeps over. And seaward would he fare, far out from the outer skerries, and alone the sea-white stare. On a day he sat with Regin amidst the unfashioned gold, and the silver grey from the furnace. And Regin spake and told sweet tales of the days that have been, and the kings of the bold and wise, till the lad's heart swelled with longing and lit his sun-bright eyes. Then Regin looked upon him, Thou too shalt one day ride, as the Volsung kings went faring through the noble world and wide. For this land is not in narrow, and kings of the carls are these. And their earls are acre biters, and their hearts are dull with peace. But Sigurd knit his brows, and in wrathful wise he said, Ill words of those thou speakest that my youth have cherished, and of friends that have made me merry, and the land that is fair and good. Then Regin laughed and answered, Nay, well I see by thy mood, that wide wilt thou ride in the world like thy kin of the earlier days, and wilt thou be wroth with thy master that he longs for thy winning, the praise? And now if this sooth thou sayest, that these kingfolk cherish thee, well, then let them give thee a gift whereof the world shall tell, yea hearken to this my counsel, and pray for a battle steed. Yet wroth was the lad and answered, I have many a horse to my need, and all that the heart desireth, and what wouldst thou wish me more? Then Regin answered and said, Thy kin of the kings of yore, were the noblest men of menfolk. And their hearts would never rest, half so of good they had gotten, if their hands held not the best. Now do thou after my counsel, and crave of thy fosterers here, that thou choose of the horses of Gripperwix that thine heart holds dear. He spake and his harp was with him, and he smote the strings full, sweet, and sang of the host of the Valkyrs, how they ride the battle to meet, and the dew from the deer manes drippeth as they ride in the first of the sun, and the tree boughs open to meet it when the wind of the dawning is done, and the deep dales drink its sweetness and spring into blossoming grass, and the earth groweth fruitful of men, and bringeth their glory to pass. Then the wrath ran off from Sigurd, and he left the smithy instead, while the song yet rang in the doorway, and that eve to the kings he said, "Will you do so much for mine asking us to give me a horse to my will? For belike the days shall come, that shall all my heart fulfill, and teach me the deeds of a king." Then answered King Elf and spake, "The stalls of the kings are before thee to set aside or to take, and not we begrudge thee the best." Yet answered Sigurd again, for his heart of the mountains aloft in the windy drift was fain, fair seats for the knees of kings. But now do I ask for a gift, such as all the world shall be praising, the best of the strong and the swift. Ye shall give me a token for Gripper, and bid him to let me choose from out of the noble stud beasts that run in his meadow loose. But if overmuch I have asked you, forget this prayer of mine, and deem the word unspoken, and get ye to the wine." Then smiled King Elf, and answered, "A long way wilt thou ride, to where unpeace and troubles and the griefs of the soul abide, yea unto the death at the last, yet surely shalt thou win the praise of many a people, so have thy way herein. Forsooth no more may we hold thee than the hazel copse may hold, the sun of the early dawning, that turneth it all unto gold." Then sweetly Sigurd thanked them, and through the night he lay, mid dreams of many a matter till the dawn was on the way. Then he shook the sleep from off him, and that dwelling of kings he left, and wended his ways unto Gripper. On a crag from the mountain raft was the house of the old king builded. And a mighty house it was, though few were the sons of men that over its threshold would pass, but the wild terns cried about it, and the vultures toward it flew, and the winds from the heart of the mountain searched every chamber, through, and about were meads wide spreading. And many a beast thereon, yea some that are men folk's terror, their sport and pasture won. So into the hall went Sigurd. And amidst was Gripper set, in a chair of the sea beast's tooth. And his sweeping beard nigh met the floor that was green as the ocean, and his gown was of mountain gold, and the kingly staff in his hand was knobbed with the crystal cold. Now the first of the twain spake Gripper, "Hail king with the iron, bright! Not needest thou show the token, for I know of thy life and thy light. And no need to tell of thy message. It was wafted here on the wind, that thou wouldst be coming today a horse in my meadow to find, and strong must he be for the bearing of those deeds of thine that shall be. Now choose thou of all the waywares that are running loose in my lee, and be glad as thine heart will have thee in the fate that leadeth thee on, and I bid thee again come hither when the sword of worth is won, and thy loins are girt for thy going on the road that before thee lies. For glimmering over its darkness is come before mine eyes." Then again get Sigurd outward, and adown the steep he ran, and unto the horse-fed meadow, but lo, a grey-clad man, one-eyed and seeming ancient, there met him by the way, and he spake, "Thou hastest, Sigurd. Yet tarry till I say a word that shall well bestead thee, for I know of these mountains well, and all the lee of Gripper, and the beasts that thereon dwell. Wouldst thou have red gold for thy tidings? Art thou Gripper's horse hurt then? Nay sure, for thy face is shining like the battle-eager men, my master Rachel tells of, and I love thy cloud-grey gown. And thy visage gleams above it like a thing my dreams have known. Nay whiles have I heeded the horse kind." Then spake that elder of days, and sooth did the sages say, when the beasts of my breeding they praise. There is one thereof in the meadow, and, wouldst thou call him out, thou shalt follow an elder's counsel, who hath brought strange things about, who hath known thy father aforetime, and other kings of thy kin." So Sigurd said, "I am ready." "And what is the deed to win?" He said, "We shall drive the horse thither down to the water side, that cometh forth from the mountains, and note what next shall betide." Then the twain sped on together, and they drave the horses on, till they came to a rushing river, a water wide and wan. And the white mews hovered o'er it. But none might hear their cry, for the rush and the rattle of waters, as the down-long flood swept by. So the whole herd took the river and strove the stream to stem, and many a brave steed was there. But the flood o'ermastered them, and some, it swept them downward, and some won back to bank, some, caught by the net of the eddies, in the swirling hubbub sank. But one of all swam over, and they saw his mane of grey, toss over the flowery meadows, a bright thing far away. Why then he wheeled about them, then took the stream again, and with the waves white horses mingled his cloudy mane. Then spake the elder of days, "Hearken now, Sigurd, and here. Time was when I gave thy father a gift thou shalt yet deem dear, and this horse is a gift of my giving. Heed not where thou mayst ride, for I have seen thy fathers in a shining house abide, and on earth they thought of its threshold, and the gifts I had to give, nor prayed for a little longer, and a little longer to live. Then forth he strode to the mountains, and fain was Sigurd now to ask him many a matter, but dim did his bright shape grow, as a man from litten doorway fades into the dusk of night. And the sun in the high noon shone, and the world was exceeding bright. So Sigurd turned to the river and stood by the wave-wet strand, and the grey horse swims to his feet and lightly leaps aland, and the youngling looks upon him, and deems none beside him good. And indeed, as tells the story, he was come of Sleipnir's blood, the tireless horse of Odin. Cloud grey he was of hue, and it seemed as Sigurd backed him that Sigmund's son he knew, so glad he went beneath him. Then the youngling's song rose, as he brushed through the noontide blossoms of Gripir's mighty close. Then he singeth the song of Greyfell, the horse that Odin gave, who swam through the sweeping river, and back through the toppling wave. Regin telleth Sigurd of his kindred, and of the gold that was accursed from ancient days. Now yet the days pass over, and more than words may tell, grows Sigurd strong and lovely, and all children love him well. But oft he looks on the mountains, and many a time is fain to know of what lies beyond them, and learn of the wide world's game. And he said, I dwell in a land that is ruled by none of my blood. And my mother's sons are waxing, and fair kings shall they be in good. And their servant or their betrayer, not one of these will I be. Yet needs must I wait for a little till Odin calls for me. Now again it hath gone a day that he sat in Regin's hall, and took in many tidings of what had chanced to fall, and of kings that sought their kingdoms o'er many waste and wild. And at last said the crafty master, Thou art King Sigmund's child, wilt thou wait till these kings of the call shall die in a little land, or wilt thou serve their sons and carry the cup to their hand? Or abide in vain for the day that never shall come about, when their banners shall dance in the wind and shake to the war gods' shout? Then Sigurd answered and said, Not such do I look to be. But thou, a deedless man, too much thou eggest me, and these folk are good and trusting, and the land is lovely and sweet, and in rest and in peace it lieth as the floor of Odin's feet. Yet I know that the world is wide, and filled with deeds and loot. And for e'en such work as I fashioned, lest the songcraft come to naught, when the harps of God home tinkle, and the gods their stretch to hearken, lest the hosts of the gods be scanty when their day hath begun to darken, when the bonds of the wolf wax thin, and Loki fretteth his chain. And sure for the house of my fathers full oft my heart is vain, and meseemeth I hear them talking of the day when I shall come, and of all the burden of deeds, that my hand shall bear them home. And so when the deed is ready, no wise the man shall lack, but the wary foot is the surest, and the hasty oft turns back. Then answered Regin the guileful, The deed is ready to hand, yet holding my peace is the best, for while thou lovest the land, and thou lovest thy life moreover, and the peace of thy youthful days, and why should the full-fed feast to his hand to the raw bread raise? Yet they say that Sigmund begat thee, and he looked to fashion a man. Fear not. He leave quiet in his mound by the sea waves wan. So shone the eyes of Sigurd, that the shield against him hung, cast back their light as the sunbeams. But his voice to the roof tree rung, Tell me, thou master of masters, what deed is the deed I shall do? Nor mock thou the son of Sigmund, lest the day of his birth thou rue. Then answered the master of Sleip, The deed is the righting of wrong, and the quelling of bale, and the sorrow that the world hath endured, O long, and the winning a treasure untold, that shall make thee more than the kings. Thereof is the helm of Ein, the wonder of earthly things, and thereof is its very fellow, the war coat all of gold, that is not its like in the heavens, nor has earth of its fellow told. Then answered Sigurd the Volsung, How long hereof hast thou known? And what unto thee is this treasure, that thou seemest to give as thy own? Alas, quoth the smithing master, It is mine, yet none of mine, since my heart hearing avails not, and my hand is frail and fine. It is long since I first came hither to seek a man for my need. For I saw by a glimmering light that henceforth spring the deed, and many a deed of the world, but the generations passed, and the first of the days was as near to the end that I sought it the last. Till I looked on thine eyes in the cradle, And now I deem through thee, that the end of my days of waiting, and the end of my woes shall be. Then Sikirdawa was silent. But at last he answered and said, Thou shalt have thy will and the treasure, and shalt take the curse on thine head, if the curse the gold in Rabeth. But the deed will I surely do, for today the dreams of my childhood hath bloomed in my heart anew, and I long to look on the world and the glory of the earth, and to deal in the dealings of men, and garner the harvest of worth. But tell me, thou master of masters, where leaveth measureless wealth? Is it guarded by swords of the earl folk, or kept by cunning and stealth? Is it over the main sea's darkness, or beyond the mountain wall? Or e'en in these peaceful acres and I to the hands of all? Then Raging answered sweetly, Hereof must a tale be told, Bide sitting, thou son of Sigmund, on the heap of unroot gold, and hearken of wondrous matters, and of things unheard, unsaid, and deeds of my beholding ere the first of kings was made. And first ye shall know of a sooth, that I never was born of the race, which the masters of God home have made to cover the fair earth's face. But I come of the dwarfs departed. And fair was the earth William, ere the short-lived thralls of the gods amidst its deals were come, and how were we worse than the gods, though maybe we lived not as long, yet no weight of memory maimed us, nor aught we knew of wrong. What felt our souls of shaming, what knew our hearts of love? We did and undid at pleasure, and repented not thereof. Yea, we were exceeding mighty, bear with me yet, my son. For whiles can I scarcely think it that our days are wholly done. And trust not thy life in my hands in the day when most I seem, like the dwarfs that are long departed, and most of my kindred I dream. So as we dwelt came tidings that the gods amongst us were, and the people came from Asgard, then rose up hope and fear, and strange shapes of things went flitting betwixt the night and the eve, and our sons waxed wild and wrathful, and our daughters learned to grieve. Then we fell to the working of metal, and the deeps of the earth, would know, and we dealt with venom and leechcraft, and we fashioned spear and bow, and we set the ribs to the oak heel, and looked on the land and the sea. And the world began to be such like as the gods would have it to be. In the womb of the woeful earth have they quickened the grief and the gold. It was Radmer the ancient begat me. And now is he waxen old, and a covetous man and a king. And he bade, and I built him a hall, and a golden glorious house. And thereto his sons did he call, and he bade them be evil and wise, that his will through them might be wrought. Then he gave unto Fafnir my brother the soul that feareth not, and the brow of the hardened iron, and the hand that may never fail, and the greedy heart of a king, and the ear that hears no wail. But next unto Ida my brother he gave the snare and the net, and the longing to run through the wild wood, and wade the highways, wet, and the foot that never resteth, while aught be left alive, that hath cunning to match man's cunning or might with his might to strive. And to me, the least and the youngest, what give for the slaying of ease? Save the grief that remembers the past, and the fear that the future sees. And the hammer in fashioning iron, and the living coal of fire. And the craft that created the semblance, and fails of the heart's desire. And the toil that each dawning quickens, and the task that is never done. And the heart that longeth ever, nor will look to the deed that is won. Thus gave my father the gifts that might never be taken again. Far worse were we now than the gods, and but little better than men. But yet of our ancient might one thing had we left us still, we had craft to change our semblance, and could shift us at our will, into bodies of the beast kind, or fowl, or fishes cold. For belike no fixed semblance we had in the days of old, till the gods were waxen busy, and all things their form must take, that knew of good and evil, and longed to gather and make. So dwelt we, brethren and father. And Fafnir my brother fared, as the scourge and compeller of all things, and left no wrong undared. But for me, I toiled and I toiled. And fair grew my father's house. But writhen and foul were the hands that had made it glorious. And the love of women left me, and the fame of sword and shield, and the sun and the winds of heaven, and the fowl and the grass of the field, were grown as the tools of my smithy. And all the world I knew, and the glories that lie beyond it, and whitherward all things drew. And myself a little fragment amidst it all I saw, grim, cold heart, and mighty as the tempest-driven straw. Let me for Otter my brother saw seldom field or fold, and he often misused that custom, whereof e'en now I told, and would shift his shape with the wood beasts and the things of land and sea. And he knew what joy their hearts had, and what they longed to be, and their dim-eyed understanding, and his woodcraft waxed so great, that he seemed the king of the creatures and their very mortal fate. Now as the years won over, three folk of the heavenly halls grew aweary of sleepless sloth, and the day that not befalls. And they fain would look on the earth, and their latest handiwork, and turn the fine gold over, lest a flaw therein should lurk. And the three were the heart-wise Odin, the father of the slain, and Loki, the world's begrudger, who maketh all labor vain, and Hoenir, the utter blameless, who wrought the hope of man, and his heart and inmost yearnings, when first the work began. The God that was aforetime, and hereafter yet shall be, when the new light yet undreamed of shall shine o'er earth and sea. Thus about the world they wended and deemed it fair and good, and they loved their life pace dearly, so came they to the wood, and the lea without a shepherd and the dwellings of the deer, and unto a mighty water that ran from a fathomless mere. Now that flood my brother Otter had haunted many a day, for its plenteous fruit of fishes. And there on the bank he lay, as the gods came wandering thither. And he slept, and in his dreams, he saw the down-long river, and its fishy peopled streams, and the swift smooth heads of its courses, and its swirling wells, and, deep, where hang the poised fishes, and their watch in the rock halls keep. And so, as he thought of it all, and its deeds and its wanderings, whereby it ran to the sea down the road of scaly things, his body was changed with his thought, as yet with the want of our kind, and he grew but an otter indeed. And his eyes were sleeping and blind, the while he devoured the prey, a golden red-flecked trout. Then passed by Odin and Hoenir, nor cumbered their souls with doubt. But Loki lingered a little, and gall in his heart arose, and he saw through the shape of the otter, and beheld a chief of his foes, a king of the free and the careless. So he called up his baleful might, and gathered his godhead together, and tore a shard outright, from the rock wall of the river, and across its green bills cast. And roaring over the waters that gulped of evil past, and smote my brother Otter that his heart's life fled away, and bore his man's shape with it, and beast-like where he lay, stark dead on the sunlit blossoms, but the evil god rejoiced, and because of the sound of his singing the wild grew many-voiced. Then the three gods waded the river, and no word Hoenir spake, for his thoughts were set on Godhome, and the day that is ever awake. But Odin laughed in his wrath, and murmured, "Ah, how long, till the iron shall ring on the anvil for the shackles of thy wrong?" Then Loki takes up the quarry, and is e'en as a man again. And the three went on through the wildwood till they come to a grassy plain, beneath the untrodden mountains. And lo, a noble house, and a hall with great craft fashioned, and made full glorious. But night on the earth was falling. So scantly might they see the wealth of its smooth-wrought stonework and its world of imagery. Then Loki bade turn thither since day was at an end, and into that noble dwelling the lords of Godhome wend. And the porch was fair and mighty, and so smooth-wrought was its gold, that the mirrored stars of heaven therein might ye behold. But the hall, what words shall tell it, how fair it rose aloft, and the marvels of its windows, and its golden hangings soft, and the forest of its pillars. And each like the waves heart shone, and the mirrored boughs of the garden were dancing fair thereon. Long years agone was it builded, and where are its wonders now? Now the men of Godhome marveled, and gazed through the golden glow, and a man like a covetous king amidst of the hall they saw. And his chair was the tooth of the whale, wrought smooth with never a flaw. And his gown was the sea-born purple, and he bore a crown on his head, but never a sword was before him. Kind-seeming words he said, and bade rest to the weary feet that had worn the wild so long. So they sat, and were men by seeming. And there rose up music and song, and they ate and drank and were merry, but amidst the glee of the cup, they felt themselves tangled and caught, as when the net cometh up, before the folk of the firth, and the main sea leath far off. And the laughter of lips they hearkened, and that hall-abider's scoff, as his face and his mocking eyes anigh to their faces drew, and their godhead was caught in the net, and no shift of creation they knew, to escape from their man-like bodies. So great that day was the earth. Then spake the hall-abider, "Where then is thy guileful mirth, and thy hull glee gone, O Loki? Come, Hoenir, fashion now my heart for love and for hope, that the fear in my body may grow, that I may grieve and be sorry, that the ruth may arise in me, as thou dealst with the first of men folk, when a master smith thou wouldst be. And thou, Alfather Odin, hast thou come on a bastard brood? Or hadst thou been like a brother, thy twin for evil and good, that waked amidst thy slumber, and slumbered midst thy work? Nay, wise one,